Okay, let's go.
All right, welcome back to the Warriors Way podcast. Wherever you're listening to us from, just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to tune into the show. And the goal for this show is that you would take something out of it and it would help you become a better version of yourself in your faith, family, and fitness. So if this show is impactful to you at all, I'd really appreciate if you'd share it with one other person that you think could benefit from it. That's all we ask. So my name's Tim. I'm the host of the show, and today we have my friend Bruce Payne on to share some of his story. So Bruce, thanks for jumping on the show, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for having me. It's actually a pleasure to be here. I've talked to you about the show, listened to it a little bit, and just I'm thrilled that and honored to actually be on here, man. So thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, let's go. So how's your day going, man?
It's going well. We're in the process of moving. So as you said, my name's Bruce. I live here in Metro Detroit. I go to church with Tim. My day job, I'm actually a special education teacher. I teach adult transitions, so adults 18 to 26 years old. I'm married to another educator. Together we have 9 beautiful, crazy kids. That's what we say on our podcast when we sit there and come in on our marriage podcast is, hey, 9 beautiful, crazy kids, beautiful and crazy like mom. And then she comes back and says, yeah, right, you're the crazy one. So I kind of am because we have 9 kids. I teach, I coach, going to seminary right now. But we're in the process of moving. We don't know if we're moving the end of this week or if it's going to happen next week. We're kind of like in this wait and see game. But regardless, we have spent the majority of the day packing today.
Well, yeah, I can understand all the stress that comes with that and the excitement of, moving into a new house. But so congratulations, man. I know that that's been on your heart for a while.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's one of those things where for so long, even since my childhood, I moved around quite a bit, and God's put it on our heart to finally take root. And even over the last 3 or 4 months, as we've gone through this process, it's been one of those things where it's like, hey, we thought we might end up here or we might end up there. And God's like, no, I put you exactly where I wanted you to be within the school district with your kids, for your kids, in the community. And I want it to be your Jerusalem and Judea coming together and doing everything there. So couldn't ask for anything better. That being said, it is stressful because it is moving and we have a bunch of kids. And so there's so much stuff going on right now.
Yeah, you guys did hear that right. He has 9 kids, and it's definitely beautiful from the mom, crazy from the dad. They get a little bit from both. I've had the pleasure to get to know Bruce and his family over the last few months. They've started volunteering at our church and being a big part of the ministry there. So it's been awesome to grow with him and his family there. And we'll get some more into that. So Bruce, as we get started, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your backstory? Where are you from? How did you get here into Michigan?
Yeah, brother, gladly. So for me, I was born and raised in Southern California to parents who were kids themselves when they had me. They had no business having me at the ages they did, but my mom and dad were, young. My dad and I are 20 years apart to the year, which means he was 19 when my mom got pregnant. My mom was 18, was 19 when she had me. Um, they dated in high school. They went out in high school, were falling in love, and then the next thing you know, I came into the world and changed their lives. And so, needless to say, my whole entire upbringing was a bit nuts, just in terms of how often we moved. We never really rooted until I was 15 years old. And that being said, my dad was raised in the Catholic Church, but didn't have a relationship with Jesus. Was an alcoholic himself. If I had to guess, I'm at least a 4th generation alcoholic, could be more. And then my mom, when I was in early elementary school, had enough of kind of what was going on, and she decided to go to Calvary Chapel, Capo Beach, and accept Jesus as her Lord and Savior when I was like 5 or 6 years old. If you've seen the movie Jesus Revolution, that's the area that we grew up in. Chuck Smith Jr., Chuck Smith, who was played by Kelsey Grammer, his son's church is where she was saved. My youngest daughter's name's Harvest, after Greg Laurie's church, Harvest Christian Fellowship. And so that's how it all ties in. And so anyways, man, I was a wild child, had a lot of fun, got into a lot of trouble. Even though I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior as a young kid, Let's just say it took up until 4 years ago for me to surrender my life to him. And so, a little bit more backstory. I get married young. My parents like warned me. They're like, dude, go to college, do what you got to do. And I was like, awesome, let's get married. And so at 20 years old, I get married to my high school sweetheart. Um, things are not going great within marriage. Can't even afford to live on our own in Southern California. We're living with mom and dad. I mean, all kinds of stupid stuff. Like we're just repeating history. You're supposed to learn from history, but that did not happen with us. And so she ends up getting pregnant. We end up finding out she's pregnant again with our second kid. And then that kind of forced my hand to go to college because I needed to be able to afford to pay for kids. We would end up having a third healthy kid, so 3 babies in a row, or pretty close in age. They're now 21, 20, and 18. And then we went through 3 miscarriages in between. So 3 healthy kids, 3 miscarriages. During the miscarriage season of life, her mom passed away. My grandpa passed away. We ended up having a 4th healthy kid together, all before I'm 29 years old. And shortly after kid number 4 is born, I get told, I'm done. I'm finished. And I'm like, when I say shortly, I mean within a couple weeks. And that just led me down this path, man, of spiraling out of control. Alcoholism picked up even more to be able to just sit there and, suppress my hurts and everything else. And so all that goes down. I get remarried a couple years later, not even two full years later.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you, Bruce. When you say you were told you're done and finished, that was your wife telling you we're done and finished.
It was my ex-wife telling me we are done, we are finished via text. And I was like,
gosh.
what do you mean we are finished? Like we have a kid who's like still on the boob, man. Like what are we supposed to do right now? Like we're talking 2 weeks fresh. And the text was, yeah, I'm done. Like I am done with this. And we were in the process of moving. Like we're in the process of moving too. And so like I was moving her into a place that I would never ever move into. Like it was weird. So, and there's more to the story than that. I'll say this, her and I get along well now. I mean, pretty much for the sake of the kids we have the whole entire time that we've been separated. Not always been pretty. But we get along well. My wife and her text, like it's not abnormal for her and I to text now. So God is good and God's healed that. But so yeah, at the time, man, dude, you get a text, I'm done. I'll never forget. I have my little 2-year-old, not even my 2-year-old, he's older than that. I had the baby was small. I had another kid with me. I went to my parents' house and I said, hey, I don't know how to say this. And I just broke down crying like, she said, we're done. We're divorced. And my mom's like, the heck you're not. The God-fearing woman, she's like, the heck you're not. I'll take care. And I was like, oh, hey, mama, how's this going to go? And I already knew what my mom was going to do. But guess what? It was done. We were done. And it wrecked me, man. At that time, I was coaching high school football and teaching. And the next thing I know, I'm a single dad living in my parents' house with them again with 4 kids. And I didn't end up having the kids full time, but I had them a ton. And I'd sit there and try the best I could, getting up in the middle of the night, going to school and teaching, and trying to coach. And look at that little thumbs down. Yeah, it sucked. And so, I mean, that was my life for a good 1.5 years, 2 years. And one would think that, hey, you learn from your mistakes or you learn from things. And that didn't happen for me. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like, hey, guess what? All of a sudden things were great and gravy and I turned my life around. No, in fact, it continued just to go downhill after that. And I was like, oh man, like I thought a roller coaster was supposed to stop at some point and then it would go back up. And that just did not happen right away.
Man, I cannot even imagine. I know we've talked and, you've heard some of my story too, and a lot of similarities. It's that gut punch of something you never thought would happen. I can't, I have trouble being able to like imagine how I went through mine, and we didn't have kids. You had 4 kids. One was just born. I can't even imagine getting that text. So you have your kids, you move back in with your parents, and you're trying to just kind of get through life, trying to push forward. so what happens next? Like, I know you said roller coaster kept going. How long did that go on for?
Yeah. So at that point in time, man, I get divorced, uh, and it's a good 2 years, give or take. Not the exact time, but right around 2 year time window. And I'm living with my parents. I'm making decent money. I mean, I'm paying some child support, but not a ton. Um, and During that time, like, my parents were awesome. They kind of gave me space, but they also were they didn't know what to do, to be honest, but they tried. My mom prayed every day. She's like, "Hey, we're praying for you every day." And I finally got to a point where it was like, "Hey, they're like, you need to move out on your own. You got on your own 2 feet again." And I was like, Okay." And so I went and rented this apartment. Um, and it was a 2 bedroom apartment in Southern California. And I'm in this apartment, and on the days I have my kids, I'm pretty functionable. But on the days I don't have my kids, I'm all of a sudden I'm alone for the first time ever in my life. Like, I didn't go off to college. I lived at home with my parents. I got married while living at home with my parents. I always lived with someone. And so then I'd have these nights where I'm just alone. These nights where it's like, I'm gonna fall asleep at 8 o'clock at night because I have nothing else to do, and I'm just gonna go drink myself to sleep. And the thing that I wanted so desperately was to get married again, right? Like, hey, guess what? I just got out of a horrible relationship. The healthy thing to do, you'd think, is let's jump right back in another one, right? Like, this is my favorite part, is like, let's jump in it again. And so I did. I started dating. I was like, I'm going to find a wife. I'm going to get remarried. We're going to make this work. And the reality is, it was me who needed the working on, right? And so I go through this season, and I'm trying to date, and I almost thinking about getting married. My mom's like, "You're not in love. You ain't getting married." And I was like, "I just want a wife." My mom's like, "You're dumb." And so I don't end up getting married this first time after the divorce. And I'm sitting there in the summer, and I'm just crying. I'm like, "God, you know my heart." I, I'm in the middle of getting prepared for a football season. I go, "God, you know my heart. Like, I just want a wife." And I go, "I'm done searching. Just bring me the woman that it's supposed to be." And this is, give or take, probably August. And as I'm sitting there, football season starts, and it's October now. A couple months go by, and as we're sitting there, I'm at the pool, and lo and behold, it's a lot more fun to drink with somebody else. And so I was drinking with this other dude who's a single dad who's living in the pool with this high school kid, and he had a daughter. Right. And so him and I, we go drink at the bar on Sunday nights together. We go have a couple of drinks. He was the bouncer there, whatever he did there. And him and I go have drinks. So all of a sudden, his daughter shows up one day. And I was like, sweet. She's cute. She's hanging out at the pool. It's on Sunday night. And I didn't have my kids Sunday night, so it worked out. And so that's when we went out. And I go, "Hey, you gonna come out with us and go have a drink?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's go." That's in October. And this is like, so I don't know. I got divorced, or technically we separated in January, almost a year and 10 months prior to that. And so that's how soon after it was. And we go out, we hang out, have a good time, buy her a couple of drinks, talk. Afterwards, I text her and said, "Hey," actually I said, "Can I get your number?" She's like, "Sure, I'll give you your number." And we're 9 years apart. So here's the full story. Tim hasn't even heard any of this, so I'm gonna sit there and just, here we go, bud. We're 9 years apart. She's in college. I'm a single dad of four. She's broken from her childhood. She's out with her dad, who she doesn't see a lot. We hit it off. Within the next 2 nights, her and I are hanging out. She's at my apartment, and I'm helping her study. And the joke is, I didn't even help her. I mean, I tried to help her study, but she's way smarter than me, so I couldn't help her with her anatomy stuff that she was trying to do. And then a couple of days later, we hung out again, and then we were inseparable ever since. And so you're like, "Hey, guess what? Happy ending." No, not happy ending. Homie, we end up dating for 2 months, and then we get married after 2 months of knowing each other. So there you go. I'll throw that one in there. How about that one, right? You go from marrying my high school sweetheart to marrying a chick after 2 months of knowing her, being like, "This is a good idea. You still have a year of college left. I have 4 kids. Let's go."
Yeah. I know Bruce, just for a few months now, and hey, he moves fast. What can we say? So during this time, you said you prayed and you're like, "God, I just want a wife." You're coaching football. Was God a big part of your life at that time? Were you going to church, or were you just kind of like, you're remembering the stuff you heard as a kid? You know that God's in there somewhere, so you're just kind of throwing a wish out in the wishing well, hoping God will snatch it up.
I think there's one of the, in life, I love how you mentioned when you're a kid. I actually went to school to be like my undergrad degrees in religion and leadership, like be a pastor. Like that's what I went to school for. That's what my undergrad degree is in. That being said, I never fully walked it. As an intern on staff at a church, didn't drink. Off interning at a church, I'd go back to drinking, partying with coaches. And so I knew right one from wrong. The reality is there was still bitterness and hurt from my own childhood that I'd not, yet forgiven or moved on from. And just being strong-willed that I am, I'm what you call a hypocrite, man. There's parts of my life I was not willing to surrender to God. And so, yes, I went to church every week, and I loved worshiping, and I loved hearing the pastor, and I knew pastors, but I was not willing to surrender. And in fact, when I met my wife, I told her, I said, dude, if we're going to get married one day and this is going to work, you have to love God more than me. Like I said those words to her as we started dating, and she goes, sign me up, let's go. And so this is my favorite part of everything that's transpired in my life was she fell in love with God, and she loved God more than she loved me. And that is the only reason why we are married almost 14 years later today, is because she chose to carry our yoke and our burden as I figured my life out. She says, hey, I do to God. Our marriage ended up sucking for a long time after that, but she's like, I love God. We went to church every weekend. She jumped in. She learned the Bible. She went through the Bible. And as a result, we're still married today.
Amen. So I know, you guys get married after a couple months of dating. And not everything was just magically fixed, go figure. So what do those next few years look like for you guys?
Yeah. So the next few years, so we get married, long courtship, 2 months, get married, say I do. And I do. We got married on New Year's Eve. We wake up, say, hey, let's go get married. You want to go get married, baby? Let's go. And so we go get married. Find out a month later she's pregnant. We end up having 5 kids in a row, back to back to back to back, all summer birthdays. I mean, in July or August, 2013 to 17, everything in between. I have a job, still an alcoholic. During that time, I ended up getting injured at work. I went to chase a kid. My hand get caught in his shirt, flipped over as he was trying to hurt himself. I ended up needed thumb surgery and back surgery. Thumb surgery happened right away. Back surgery did not. And we lose where we live and everything else. And so, I mean, technically during that time, I just had this conversation with our son last night, or it was something like, there was a moment we were homeless, man. I literally spent 3 nights in a tent at a campground because I had no house. Like, legitimately happened. He was like, it was longer than that. I go, yeah, it was 3 days in a tent and like another 3 in a motorhome. But regardless, I did not have a house. And so, I mean, we spent the night in our church parking lot one night too. Like that was a real thing that happened when all this went down. And I had to suck up my pride and go to my parents and say, hey, can we move back in? I was sitting at a hockey rink on the side. I was like, dude, this camping thing kind of sucks. Living in our suburban kind of sucks. Can we live? And they're like, well, what's going to happen? I said, well, we're going to move back in and try to get our life turned around as I wait for surgery. I was waiting for my back to have surgery on. It was an 18-month period from when I got injured to when I ended up having surgery. Saw 7 doctors. So during this time, there's no surgery on the docket. And yeah, man. So I moved back in with mom and dad. So same townhome. They have 3 rooms. Mom and dad are in a room. I have 4 kids from my first wife at this point in time. I have another 3. They're in 1 bedroom together on air mattresses. We're in another room living with mom and dad with no money coming in, or there's money coming in, but not a lot to live on our own. And so this goes down. And so as we're living there, I don't even know how long we're there for, but it was long enough. And we're sitting there one day, and I'll never forget, I'm sitting on the end of the bed with my wife, and Kayla and I were sitting there, and like we're broken. Like, I don't know what to do. We've already seen 7 doctors for back surgery, workers' comp, and some other things. The doctors were arguing. Some doctors wanted the disc to leak out. Other ones wanted to sit there and fuse things. Like, it was just nuts. pain management specialist. Like we saw it all, and there was no end in sight. And so as we're sitting there one night, just talking, praying, and I look over at her and it's quiet, and I hear, Texas is going to be good for you. And I was like, did you just say something to me? She's like, no, I didn't say anything, man. She goes, no, honey, I didn't say anything. More like that. And I said, okay. And then I hear, Texas is going to be good. I said, you sure you didn't say anything again? And she goes, no. And I just weep. I wept and I just wept and I just kept coming out. And she goes, why? I go, God just told me we got to go to Texas. And the backstory that's funny to me or entertaining, or as God's probably laughing at me right now as I say this is a few years prior, my ex-wife tried moving to Texas, and I'm on stand in front of a judge, and the judge goes, Mr. Payne, are you willing to sit there and move to Texas with your ex-wife? And I said, there's no way in hell I will ever move to Texas. Legit, verbatim, word for word. And the judge sided with me. The kids didn't get to move to Texas. And so now I'm in this room, God told me to move to Texas. And we're like, okay, God, what does this mean? And so that happens. Within a couple weeks, get a phone call. My surgery's approved. 18 months of waiting. My surgery's finally approved to have back surgery. And meanwhile, I'm walking around with a cane and some other fun things going on for a good 9 months or whatever it was. And back surgery's finally approved. Well, the stipulation of moving to Texas that God told us was, hey, Bruce, you're going to go back and go to seminary. You're going to go to seminary. And I was like, man, I ran away from Bible college at 18. I have an undergrad in religious studies. I was an intern at a mega church in SoCal. I ran away from that. And I was like, okay, God, at this point, I feel like the Israelites, you're going to sit there and carry me out. Let's go. Right. And I was like the Israelites. I agreed. I obeyed. And as I went and I get back surgery within a couple months, I'm checking out Baylor by, I don't even know, like March or whatever it was. And the next thing I know, we moved to Texas middle of July of that same year. A few months later, we moved to July. My ex-wife and her husband, my wife and I and all of our kids, we all move out within 2 days of each other to Texas. I go out there. I'm a pastor on staff at a church. I'm going to seminary. God rescued me. I'm going to be good, brother. We're good. But then guess what? Like the Israelites, I turned my back. And I was like, hey, I did it for a year. I went to seminary for a year. I argued with more people in seminary than I did get along with. I didn't fully buy in. And it lasted a year before finances got tight. That's always my excuse too, by the way. Hey, money's tight. I can't go to seminary anymore. Money's tight. I can't sit there and be an intern. Money's tight. I can't afford Bible college. So money's tight. I went back to coaching. I went back to teaching, and I went back to partying. So that's how I got to Texas.
So what year is this when you were in Texas?
This is 10 years ago.
Okay.
So whatever
That's
it is right now, I don't even know, dude.
Yeah.
It's 2016-ish, give or take, but it's
Okay.
been 10 years. So we lived 7 years in Texas, and we just finished our third year in Michigan.
So you guys up and moved to Texas. You spend a year on staff at a church in Bible college. After a year, you're like, nope, this isn't working. I need to go get a job. So go back into teaching, go back into coaching. So coaching has been kind of this recurring theme, I've noticed from the very beginning. So give me the backstory on coaching. Like, how'd you get into coaching? What was that? What's the draw there to coaching for you?
Yeah, man. So, growing up, my dad is as much as he struggled with his own vices, he was a really present dad. He coached all of our sports teams and everything else. Sports came natural to me. I think that's the other half of it. I was really good at sports growing up, and not just one, but a lot of different ones. And it came natural. Like for me as a kid with ADHD, or as my kids would say, DADH, like as a kid growing up, man, like the court or the field was my place of safety, that I didn't have to get yelled at by teachers for dicking around. Like I was able just to go be a kid and go have fun. And so anytime I could go out there, fourth grade, I got sent out to PE 1 day a week all day because our teacher couldn't handle me. Like that's a true story. And so the funny thing is, I end up in high school as I go to graduate. I'm playing football and basketball, but mostly football, and I end up getting injured. And so my parents had me transfer schools to a football powerhouse. I get injured, and I want nothing to do with sports ever again. I have a metal plate in my arm, 4-inch metal plate, 8 screws. Can't do anything like heavy lifting. Like I can do some stuff, but not a ton. And I wanted nothing to do with sports, to be honest. Like even though it was good and it came natural to me, I can throw a football still to this day. I can shoot baskets and do it pretty well. I wanted nothing to do with it. And as I'm teaching, my first teaching job, I was working at this elementary school in North Long Beach. And when I'm there, I'm teaching behavior kids or the equivalent of behavior kids, getting punches thrown at me. Like it just wasn't my cup of tea. And after my second year, I was like, how do I get out? And I got told that, hey, typically you can't get out of the school you're in until at least the end of your third year. And I was like, is there any other way? They're like, if you're willing to coach. And I was like, God, I don't want to coach. Like, I want nothing to do with sports. Like after I can't sit there and play football in college, or I couldn't go off to potentially do anything, whether it was hockey or anything else, I didn't want anything to do with sports. Like I was over it. And I was like, fine, you want to know what? If it's going to get me to a high school and I don't have to teach elementary school anymore behavior kids or kids with emotional impairment, like sign me up. And so I go and interview at the different high schools within the district that I was in, which was in Long Beach. And the first few coaches said the same thing. Hey, we'd like to hire you, but the 3-year rule. So I finally meet this guy named Kirk Diego, strong Christian man. Interview lasts all 15 minutes. He's sitting there cleaning the cafeteria when I go to meet him. And the conversation I had with him within public school, within 15 minutes, I could ask, are you a Christian? That was the question. Like not, I was like, yeah, I believe in God. Cool. That night I get a phone call saying, hey, we hired you. I have no coaching experience. Because the fact as a believer is like, we can use more of you guys on staff. We're going to hire you. And my background a little bit was good enough to get me in. And so that's the background. I think, the reality is, with a lot of guys too, right? As you've known, as you probably get on these calls and just talking with you and meeting with other men, is pride though is a pain in the butt. It's easy to be prideful and lose humility and not be humble. And when you're 26 or whatever I was, as I start coaching, I don't even know, 26, 27, whatever it was. You start coaching, and in a couple of years, I'm a varsity offense coordinator at a huge school. Like I coached 2 years before I was a varsity offense coordinator at a huge school. Like I had no business doing what I got offered to do by the next coach who came in. And I was like, dude, I will outcoach anyone, anywhere, anytime. Let's go. Right. And so meanwhile, during this time, I'm going through stuff at home with miscarriages and other things going on. I ended up divorcing. So now I have an ego in the coaching world. I'm coaching high school football. I'm also coaching semi-pro football in the spring for an MPSFL team. I ended up becoming the head coach of that in the spring, coaching high school in the fall. Volunteering with my kids' youth teams for football, coaching basketball along the way as well. And that's how it kind of all got started. It was my out of teaching what I was teaching to get into what I wanted to teach. And then I kind of became that teacher who happened to coach first and then taught as a backup. Where that's not the case now. Like I love teaching and I coach, but I love teaching more. So that's how I got into coaching, was that. And also my dad, when I was younger, like high school age, he had me coach girls' youth basketball teams. So like I was around it for a long time. Like it wasn't like something new. Like it was easy. Like, hey, guess what, dude? You're going to coach your little sister's team. Go have fun. And we go out and we go compete and we'd win. And so I already had the background in it, and then put it to good use when I first started teaching. And then throughout my different stops, I've coached for here and there, and then taken a year off, coached for a couple of years, take a year off, whatever it might be. And that's still going on today, as I coach football and a couple other things right now as well.
All right. Awesome. So I always knew coaching was in your, history, but it's cool to kind of see how it started and everything. So you're in Texas, you're done with seminary, you're done with working on staff at a church, you go back to teaching and coaching. What happens from there?
Yeah, man. So I'm teaching, I'm coaching, still moving around quite a bit. Like we owned a house and then we moved down towards Round Rock, just outside of Austin. Teaching and coaching again. Things are going well. But just there was the Holy Spirit, man, just sitting there saying, hey, That's not what you're called to do, right? There's a lot of things that we're able to do, but you know what it is you're supposed to be doing. And so even though I can coach, in my opinion, humbly now, with the best, like I can coach, let's go. It's not what I'm called to do, right? Like I do it well, but I'm not called. I can teach, and kids love me. Humbly, like I'm saying this, I'm not trying to sit there and say, hey, I'm prideful. Like I can do it well. Like I can go hang out with high school kids. I can hang out with middle school kids, elementary school kids, and make them laugh. We have a good time. But God's like, that's not what you're called to do. What did I tell you to do when you were 18? What did I tell you to do when you're 21? What did I tell you to do when we moved to Texas when I was 33 or right around there? And it was, you're supposed to go to seminary and preach the word of God, homie. And I was like, God. And so we're at church, barely getting by. My wife and I, she finally graduated college, right? I met her in college, and she finally graduated when we were in Texas. And we're both teaching, still not making a ton of money. And I'll never forget, dude, I'm sitting there one day, and this is 4 years ago now. So fast forward to 4 years ago, and it was in May, so just over 4 years ago. And our daughter at the time was 16. And she goes, Dad, you're a hypocrite. I go, yeah, I'm a hypocrite? Like, what? Out of everything you're going to call me, you're going to call me a hypocrite? But why? She goes, it's not even 5 o'clock on a Friday, and you just cracked open a beer. I'm like, well, it's 100 degrees outside. And she's like, Dad, you tell us that we're not supposed to go drink, yet here you are doing it yourself. And I was like, man, here God's been convicting me. At that time I'm 39, I'm 44 now. I was 39 years old, almost about to be 40. And I'd been told since I was a teenager, I started drinking when I was 15, like, stop. You already see the problem it is with your dad and mom and their marriage. You see the issue with your grandparents. I can have these conversations with my own kids now, but the reality is I wasn't a really good guy for a long time due to anger and bitterness throughout them growing up. And I quit, man. I sat there, and it was the end of May, and I'm sitting on my parents' property. They own just under 7 acres, and I'm sitting there getting trashed as I said this. And I said, and then I don't even know if they know I was getting trashed. I was just sitting back there crying because I already knew I'd stop. I was like, I gotta stop. And I stopped, dude. That was it. That day, I sat there and I said, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't keep fighting God. And the time I told my wife, I go, I'm almost 40, and it's either now or never that I'm gonna sit there and obey God. And so I quit on the spot. She quit a couple weeks later, and that's when God started to move, and just only as He can. Doing a variety of different things in our life. And so when we kind of started doing some parachurch ministry stuff and our own podcasting stuff, doesn't mean that was all fun, because her and I still got at it a little bit, but it was like the first steps to be able to be on the right page of where we're at today.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing stories about, how people come to that realization, because that's not the right word to say, because we all know when we're doing it that we're doing something wrong. But like, what's the breaking point? What's the thing that actually flips the switch and makes the change? And man, kids are a blessing for a lot of reasons. My daughter is 5 years old, and she'll call me out and correct me on things. A lot of the times it's just comical. But the other day, I typically do my own laundry. Sarah does her own laundry. I usually mess Sarah's laundry up, so she'll just rather do it herself. So the other day, she asked me, to come down and turn the stuff in the dryer on touch up. So I did. I made the mistake of turning it on like the hot setting, which is going to ruin all her clothes. So I came back up, and she's like, what'd you do? And I told her. And, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, what, what's wrong with that? So long story, I come down, I take all her clothes out, and I put it, Riley's hamper, her laundry basket was sitting there. So I put all of Sarah's clothes in that basket, and I bring it upstairs. Well, it was just all hot laundry. I put it in the basket, and it sat there for a little bit. Now it's all crazy wrinkled laundry because it got hot and then smashed in this basket. So I come back out, and Sarah's, a little bit upset, and Riley looks at me and she goes, Dad, why did you put Mom's clothes in the laundry basket? And I'm like, I'm getting corrected by my 5-year-old daughter. She doesn't even know what she's talking about. But kids have a way of like seeing stuff, and there'll be times where maybe I'm not handling things the best way. And she'll call me out like, Dad, we're not having a good attitude. I'm like, oh, you're right. Like we're telling them all these things. They pick it up and they're going to hold us accountable. And there's such a blessing that way because they can do it in a way that nobody else can.
They do, because you don't know what they sit there and they're so genuine, right? Like
Yeah.
they're not sitting there and yeah, they might be a little judgy, but they're genuine. Like they come to you out of a place of love because they trust you when you say it, and so if you've said it over and over, they want to sit there and be like their mommy and daddy, and so they're going to say the same thing you did, and they're like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that to them because now they're going to hold me accountable, or I shouldn't be telling it unless I'm going to sit there and live it like that myself, right? And so I think that is the biggest lesson is like, hey, guess what? I'm doing a pretty good job because the wisdom you're speaking to me is actually biblical in terms of what it is you're saying or how I should be going about it. And so it's powerful, man. It's powerful when our kids speak to us and talk to us and build us up. It means a lot. Just like when my daughter sat there and told me, hey, you're a hypocrite. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to hear in my life. I mean, like legitimate, like my mouth dropped. Like, what? Like, huh? You're going to call me out? And then that's like, I have nothing to say. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't like it, but you're right.
And it was. And it was one of those moments, man. And so, you know, so you have that moment, right? And so we go through life, kind of fast forward to where we're at now. So you're asking, like, how did we get here? And so, I'm sitting there with her, stop drinking. God starts working on our hearts some more. We're at church in Texas still. We've been going pretty much the whole entire time. Actually, we were going the whole time. And he just kept working on our hearts. And we get to a point where the cost of living in Texas had gotten expensive, kind of just blew up, and we weren't making a lot of money as teachers. There was talk of a teacher raise in salaries. It never happened. And so we said, hey, God, we're at this point where it'd be kind of cool to go to the Midwest. Like, hey, let's do the Midwest. And looked at Illinois, looked at Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. We get offered jobs in all four. My dad's from Michigan, by the way. I grew up near the beach in Southern California. My dad's from Michigan. He moved out to California when he was a young kid. I was 11-ish years old when I came out here for the first time. Fell in love with the lake. We have a little bit of family, great aunts, second cousins, stuff like that living out here. I fell in love with it. And so anyways, I was like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to go back to the Midwest and experience it with our brooded children at this point. We had 9 kids. Like, hey, let's give it a go. And so we did, man. We applied. And we get offered jobs. And then all of a sudden, Michigan came back, and the salaries were higher than what we didn't know how many years of service they were going to, sit there and take or give in terms of, hey, we'll honor this many, right? Just because I've been teaching, say, 15 years doesn't mean they're going to give you 15 years of service. They might say, hey, you're on the 5th pay step, whatever it might be. And so we didn't know. And so all these different places, like the numbers start coming back. And Virginia offer was pretty sweet. Across the river from D.C., cool job, but the living situation there wouldn't have put us in a better situation. Illinois is cool, but spread out. Pennsylvania, not in the right part of the state that we wanted to be in necessarily. And then Michigan, as you can see, I'm wearing a Tigers hat. I've been a Tigers fan since I was a little kid. Like this, it's nothing like it's not like, hey, I moved to Michigan 3 years ago and I'm a Tigers fan. Like my whole life, I've worn Tigers hats. And so I get ready to accept a job, get offered a job in Dearborn in Birmingham. And I mean, at that point, I didn't know a lot about either one. One of them offers me a job. They said, how much is it going to be for you and your wife for you guys to accept? I threw out a number, and they didn't even bat an eye. They said, hey, we'll take you. And I go, whoa. I just undersold myself, didn't I? And he's like, yep. I go, pause that. I'm not accepting. Like, I stopped. I was like, I wasn't 100% comfortable. We're still figuring it out. And so anyways, my wife gets a phone call from a principal in Walled Lake, which is where we live within the district. Anyway, we live within the district now. But she gets a phone call, talks to the principal. I call her. I said, hey, I'm ready to accept a job. And she goes, no, you're not. You're going to make one more phone call. I go, fine. Who am I calling? She goes, you're calling a guy named Greg. And she goes, he's the principal of the school. Give him a call. And give him a call. And he's like, hey, how's it going, Bruce? I go, it's pretty good. Ends up being he taught in the same school district I did back in California. And he knew some of the guys who I coached with. I never want to coach. Guess what? He knew some of the guys I coached with. He goes, we got to have a second interview. Now I got to bring more people and do it the next day, sit there and have another interview. And he offers me the job. Pretty much, he goes, you're going to have one more with the district office, but you're fine. Like, we want you. We're going to take all your years of service. And there you go. So I'm in this area of Walled Lake schools. My wife, we went to go rent a house because we didn't know where we wanted to live because I visited here a handful of times over the years, but I didn't know it well enough to sit there and say, hey, I wanted to buy. And so, dude, I think she put up for like 41 houses, and we get offered two houses. You can live in Novi, in the house I'm in right now for the next week and a half, or a house in Birmingham where the other job was at. Hence why I was maybe going to accept that job, teaching kindergarten, which not a good idea. We go back, we talk to the realtor real quick, and we decided on this house. We're in Texas. We get a U-Haul. We drive one of our cars out here at that point in time, here without seeing the house, moving into this house that we're in. I ended up flying back to Texas, picking up a son, and we drove back again in the second car. But, dude, we moved here sight unseen at the beginning of August 3 years ago.
Yeah, somehow that doesn't surprise me. Just with everything you've gone through, it's like, yeah, renting a house sight unseen in Michigan. I think that's the least surprising thing about you.
So far, man, right? And so, you show up, and I was like, what the? Here's my favorite part, dude, is I live in this house, and I wish I could find the pictures. It looked like we had a green grass for our kids to play on the side of our house. It's a hill. Like, there's this green hill. I was like, that's not flat. They can't play. Like, hey, guess what? It's been good for sledding season.
Yeah.
But in terms of the rest, like, we're the first house in the sub. I've ended up falling in love with the area, right? And so, we move in, sight unseen. We go to church down the street from our house. Another cool thing where him and we go to church at Northridge. Like, right when we move in, like, the lady next door, phenomenal lady, Miss Jean, and she's like, hey, best ice cream is Guernsey. And if you're looking for a youth group for your kids, you might want to check out Northridge. That's all she told us. Like, nothing else. Like, hey, not the grocery store's around the corner. Like, just those two things. And as she told us, our daughter who just graduated high school, she was going to be a sophomore at the time, she started going to youth group at Northridge right away. Like, she started going there. We did not go to Northridge for the first 2 years we lived here. We'd go visit here and there, but we had a church that we went to down the street from our house. And then this last year is kind of when things switched. But, dude, it was one of those things. Yeah, go to Guernsey Ice Cream, and Northridge is supposed to have a good youth group for your kids on Sunday nights. And I was like, we had youth group on Sunday nights in Texas. Sign us up. And so our daughter jumped in, man, and it's been our community ever since.
That's awesome. So that was 4 years ago now, right?
3. So 3 years ago, that happened. She hops in. Yeah. And so, so she's there. So 2 years go by, and I'll make this a little faster. I don't know how much time we have, but I'll kind of go forward with the story, dude. So we go to Brightmoor down the street from our house. Pastor Jamie, cool dude. Holy Spirit's working within us. My wife and I still podcasting a little bit, working on things, just kind of getting like these ministry ideas that God's put on our heart the whole entire time. And as we're doing it, so fast forward to about a year ago now. So just right around this time last year, I'm sitting there. I don't like to read. It's funny. Some people love reading. I hate with a passion. I used to. ESPN, give me ESPN, dude. I can sit there and read ESPN all day long. Sports Illustrated all day long. The Bible, Proverbs of the day, I can read it all day long. Give me any other book to read, and I couldn't do it. And this is coming from a guy who I have multiple master's degrees, and I'm not saying that to say, look at me. I didn't read. I don't. I didn't need my textbooks sometimes from school. I didn't care. I just sit there and BS my way through it. And here we are today. And it's funny because I only have, my Bible's not even on my desk. I have one book, John Maxwell's book, 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. I decided to pick up a book and read it a year ago. And I'm reading this, and it says you need to get a mentor. And I was like, I need to get a mentor. Man, that means I have to open up with somebody. I have to be willing to sit there and talk to them. And I have to ask questions because John Maxwell, as John Wooden, talks about how he talked to John Wooden and had a million different questions for John Wooden. And his questions were so good that John Wooden wanted to sit there and meet with him more. Here's the funny thing. I have a kid named Wooden after John Wooden. One of my master's thesis or projects, or whatever you want to call it, I don't even know what it was called, was John Wooden's Pyramid of Success. And here I am reading about this guy who, John Wooden, is like a guy who he leaned on for a long time. And so reading it to get a mentor, it's like begrudgingly, like legitimately growling like a dog, as I would say to my students. And so it's summertime. It's getting into summer like it is now. We have family in North Carolina, and we go to visit family. And I was like, cool, man, we're going to come hang out, take the 9-10 hour drive, whatever it is. We're going to go hang out for a weekend, go to the pool. They're having nice weather, love the people, just good people, salt of the earth. And it wasn't like, hey, guess what? We planned this thing way out in advance. It was like we talked about it, didn't work. And then one weekend it worked. And so we go and see them, and we're sitting there, and our cousins go, hey, you want to go to church with us tomorrow? I was like, absolutely, let's go. And we go to church, and I'll never forget, dude, this kid sitting next to me, by kid, he's like 20 years old. He towers over me. He's like 6'5". And he goes, buddy. I go, he said something. He goes, man, I'm sorry. I go, what? He goes, our normal preacher isn't here today. It's like some fill-in guy talking. And I was like, oh, cool. Thank you for letting me know. I'm stoked now. And this guy comes in, dude. And so, and I just want to backtrack real quick, same service. So we get there, we check in the kids. They have multiple campuses or something along the lines of that. We were supposed to go to one service. We ended up going to a different service, whatever happened that morning. So anyways, we show up to church, and worship starts as we're finishing checking in our 100 kids. And as I'm checking in the kids, I look up, I was like, no way. My favorite worship, or my top 2 or 3 favorite worship artists, Mac Brock is leading worship. He used to be at Elevation, is leading worship this day at this church. I was like, there's no way Mac Brock, that's Mac Brock. And I'm like, is that, like, I'm in the hallway. I go, is that this location or what, man? And so I legitimately walk inside, and it's Mac Brock singing worship, not even his own song. He's just leading worship. And I was like, okay, this is kind of, thanks, awesome guy, like, amazing. Like I'm picturing myself. I had seen him previously at a church event. But it was awesome, dude. So Mac Brock, yes, I have a man crush on you and your lyrics. Nah, I'm just kidding, dude. I just think you're an amazing worship leader. And what your wife does is amazing too. I got to give it to you. I got to give her props as well. Meredith. And so anyways, I go into service. Big tall dude looks down at me and says, hey, sorry, we have a pinch hitter pastoring for us today. And I was like, oh, great, thanks. And guy gets up there, and he's like fire and brimstone. I'll never forget James 1:1-9. Matter of fact, guy's pushing 60. Can tell you the outfit he has on and everything. And he just spoke to me, and I was like, that was really good. Like, you just spoke to me. Like, you just like hit me where I'm at. Random vacation, favorite worship leader, random dude speaking to me. So we go back to family's house. We hang out. I have lunch with some guy. Talk to him about how he was, had an issue with drugs at some point in time. Like, awesome conversation at lunch. Have lunch with family, hang out, whatever it is. And dude, God just convicts me. And I'm driving home, and I'm going back, and I'm finishing up this book. And meanwhile, at that time, we have 2 more kids joining the youth group. So we had 4 kids in youth group this last year, calendar year. And so Kayla and I are like, hey, dude, if we have 4 kids out of the 8 that live here, the 7 that live here at the time, going to the same youth group, we just need to make it our home. And so that's how we moved to Northridge, right? So we moved to Northridge in the same summer, like, hey, we're going to make it home. We had gone, Pastor Pete Wilson, give you a shout out too, homie. Thank you for everything. Is speaking. David speak. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff going on, and it was just speaking to our hearts, and phenomenal stuff. And put that in, paired up with the John Maxwell stuff going on, the time that we had in North Carolina at this church, and going forward, and God just starts convicting me even more. Like, hey, are you going to do what I'm asking you to do? What I've asked you to do? Nay. And so now I'm sober, and so I'm kind of like clearly thinking now. I've been sober for a while at this point. The obedience has gotten more, and just got a lot closer, right? And so with God, and so dude, conviction. Hey, you need to reach out to the guy who preached in North Carolina. I was like, Fine. I'm gonna reach out to this guy. You want me to reach out to him? I will sit there and reach out to Rick. I know, hey, Rick, I love you too. At this point in my life, dude, him and his wife Susan are phenomenal people. So I reach out to Rick. I send him an email. As I send the guy an email, he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to talk. When does it work for you?" And I'm like, "Let's just get this thing over with tomorrow, 9 o'clock or whatever it was." He's like, "Yeah, I'm available. I'll give you a call." And so he calls me in North Carolina, and the number comes down, and I look at it, and it's Illinois number. It's the time that we said we are going to meet. It's an Illinois number, and I go, "Hey, homie," I go, "Illinois number. What's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, we're from Illinois initially, but we moved to North Carolina for some, being called there." And so we start talking. Ends up being they have 8 kids. The list goes on. His mother-in-law lives not even less than 10 minutes down the street from where I live. I can't make this up. Like, all this stuff goes down. Like, we just start talking, and it's like, what's going on? Oh yeah, by the way, we'll be out there next month for a birthday or whatever it was at that point in time. And we ended up meeting them in person like a month later, maybe 6 weeks at the most. They flew out. We had breakfast before work one day, and we just sat there and talked, dude. And I finally, that nudging that was the Holy Spirit that said, "Hey, you need a mentor," finally reached out and had a mentor, and they've been mentoring us ever since, which has been absolutely one of the best decisions of my entire life.
Yeah, it's, I was curious where that mentorship portion was going to lead, because mentorship is something that I'm really big on. I've, growing up in the church the way I grew up, there was a lot of, men who wanted to lead, right? And so there's a lot of people that I had around my life that could lead me in different directions, but I never really knew the term mentorship until I was in my career. And, it was like, I had some people that just kind of assumed that role of mentorship. They were people that were looking out for me. I was going to for advice. I was, sharing stuff that was going on. And then mentorship kind of became this like hot topic of, you need a mentorship. You need somebody who's going to bat for you, who's speaking your name in rooms you're not in a good way, who's bringing advice to you, who's sharing stuff that they see that you need to improve on, that you can go and sound stuff off of. And I'm like, okay, so this is like, I'm supposed to go ask somebody, "Hey, will you be my friend? Hey, will you be my mentor?" And I really didn't know. I'm like, I think I have mentors, but I've never officially asked someone to be my mentor. Kind of going through that process. And, for some people, it's definitely hey, I want to learn and grow from you. I want you to be my mentor. And it's a little bit more formal like that. Some people, it's just this role that they've always had. They are your mentor. And, I'm fortunate to have a lot of guys in my life that I would consider mentors. I have, mentors in my career that are helping me grow. They've always had some aspect of faith along the way. And it's never been like intentional that I've sought that out. It's just been who I've connected with, who I've wanted to learn from and grow from. They happen to be men of faith as well. And that's been really awesome to kind of keep me level. So mentorship's huge. Guys, ladies, if you're listening and you do not have a mentor, I can't stress the importance of that enough. And yeah, Bruce, it's awesome.
I think with what you're saying with that too, with people who are listening right now, you have to authorize and allow people to speak truth into your life who have already walked your shoe, like your steps. Like, they've already walked where you've been. They've already gone through what you've gone through. Or maybe they haven't done everything that you've done, but you still allow them to speak truth into your life. And it's important that, hey, from the biblical perspective too, right? Because so often it's like, oh, I can make excuses or I can make rationalizations for certain things. But if I allow them to speak biblical truth into my life, that's what keeps me grounded in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And in today's day and age, it's easier than ever before to have a mentor. And like, how do you find a mentor? And it's finding somebody, like Bruce said, who's walked that path that you want to walk, they are where you want to go. Like, attach onto that. It gets kind of a bad rap, especially in like a secular career, as, sucking up or something like that. And you're not doing this in order to win favor for a promotion or for an opportunity. You're doing this because they are where you want to be. How do you get where you want to be? You got to learn. They're your coach. They're the people in your life that I want what that person has. So I want to get as close to them to become that kind of person who would have an opportunity to have a life that that kind of person has.
Amen. And it's biblical too, right? I mean, look at the disciples. Who was their mentor? They had
Yeah.
Jesus. Who did Paul mentor? Right? Like you go through in the Old Testament. It's not even just a New Testament thing. You go back in the Old Testament with Moses. Guess what? Who came after him? Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right? You have these people that you can learn from. And I can tell you this right now. And I mentioned this earlier. Like I've gone to grad school more times than I can count. I've learned more from my mentors in the last year than I have in a lot of classes that I've taken, because what they've given me is real life. Like it's been love and compassion, but also filled with truth. And it's been amazing, man. Just what Susan and Rick have meant to us, and not just me, but my wife as well. Like there's been moments that we've hopped on. They're like, hey, they can tell that something's heavy, and they'll ask, how's marriage going? And we just break down and cry, like, hey, guess what? You hit on the head right now. Oh, they're like, yeah, we know because we can see it in your face. And then there's times we're like, no, things are great, right? And so you have to be willing to be vulnerable. But if you're willing to be vulnerable, God will use them to grow you in ways that you never thought you'd grow, whether you want to or not. And it's just been tremendous. It's been tremendous.
Yeah. One thing that you just said, using the Bible as an example, like all the people you named had a mentor, but they were also mentoring someone else. So like, how has the concept of mentorship, how has finding your mentor, how has that changed your outlook on mentoring?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that you throw it. I love, that's a good question, man. So I've ran this men's group for a long time, since back when we were in Texas. I've had this men's group that you kind of joined. And it could be viewed as a texting thread. It could be, I mean, it's a pretty good group of dudes, eclectic group. For everybody. I mean, it used to be from California, from coast to coast, from California to guys in New York. Now one of the guys from California moved to Florida, so now it's from like Utah to Florida, and everything in between. There's a bunch of dudes, right? And guys who I've come into contact with over the years. And so throughout the years, I would mentor people, or I'd at least reach into their lives, or pour into their lives. It wasn't necessarily mentoring, but more pouring into their lives, as I would do these virtual Bible studies and lead them, or book studies. I mean, a variety of different things that we do. And since I've been mentored, there's been this thing that you just mentioned, right? It's one thing to sit there and be discipled, but in order to make a disciple, you can't just be discipled. At some point in time, you have to be willing to disciple other people as well. I think the reality is, when we're obedient to Christ and what it is he's asked us to do, he will bring people into our lives that need to be discipled if we are doing our part. And I think the other part of it that kind of gets lost in the discipleship aspect of things is the evangelism part, right? And so it's not just discipling people, it's evangelizing and discipleship at the exact same time. If you're sitting there reaching out to people and you're being obedient to Christ, and him saying, hey, I need you to go talk to person A, B, and C, and you do so, or he brings these people into your life and you talk to them about God, you're going to have a chance to sit there and disciple into their lives as well. And if you spend enough time with them, sooner than later, it's like, the nutrients in the tree, that fruit's going to produce more fruit, and you have to do it. And that's how it's all about. If we just sit there and I'm pouring into something, but they're not growing, and it's, hey, I'm watering the seed and the seed's just not, then I'm not doing my job, or I'm not preparing right myself, I think is probably the best way to put it. And if I'm not obedient, God's not going to allow me to pour in and actually help other people grow. So and even though I've reached into a lot of people's lives, like I said, over this last year, it's been amazing, the different dudes that God, not even just guys, but guys and women that God's brought our way, that, hey, as we're being obedient to his calling on our life, and we're in the Word of God more and more every single day, and I'm back in seminary again right now. Like he's opened more doors in this last year. It's that going back to Joshua 3 moment where he's like, hey, if you do what it is you're supposed to do, I'm going to sit there and stop the river for you, and you're going to get to do what it is God called you to do. And that's what he's doing in our life right now. And it's like, hey, going back to what I said earlier in this episode about, I can coach pretty well. I can teach pretty well. I can not lose a kid really well. Like, I just don't lose kids. But none of that is what I was called to do. And so now I'm walking within God's will for our life and his calling of what it is he's called us to do. And he's just making that path, that dry land just continues to appear in front of us as he opens door after door after door, which has been a blessing, man. I can't tell you how awesome it's been to sit there and see this come to fruition.
That's awesome. So bringing this in about a year ago, I guess, if I'm following the timeline, you start attending Northridge in Plymouth. So Northridge, the church we go to, it's similar to what Bruce mentioned about the church down in North Carolina. It's a large church, 2 locations, and we have a main campus in Plymouth, which is the one he's talking about. His kids started attending the youth group, and then we have a satellite campus in Brighton that's about a half hour away, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on traffic. So that's the one we attend now. So you start attending Plymouth about a year ago, and you've mentioned this a couple of times. You're following God's will and God's calling for your life. So what is that calling? How did Northridge help direct that? Like, where are you guys at now? How'd you get from Plymouth to Brighton?
Let me land the plane for you. And so, yeah, man, so we switch over to Plymouth. Kids are going to youth group. Awesome. We're getting more plugged in. We have these mentors. I'm continuing to read books. I go on to a couple different books after, the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And it's just like, hey, Bruce, nudging the Holy Spirit. Like when he said, hey, go to Texas. When he said, start seminary, it was the same nudging again. You need to finish seminary. And I was like, man, he goes, that piece of paper isn't what's going to sit there and make you valuable to me, right? Like, hey, guess what? That's not going to sit there and get you jobs. Or actually, let me rephrase that. Getting that piece of paper isn't going to sit there and make you a pastor all of a sudden, but you're going to be obedient in doing it. Like, that doesn't ordain you. It's not. It doesn't justify your calling. You're going to do it because I want you to be obedient. I just want you to finish it. He goes, the reality is you're going to get the job as a pastor sooner or later, either way. But I want you to be obedient as you go through this process. I was like, what does that mean? Actually, I already knew what it meant, right? It's like, hey, I quit Bible school when I was 18 after a semester. I have an undergrad in religious studies. I quit my internship at a mega church in Southern California after less than 6 months. I was a pastor, like I mentioned, in Texas. A walk away from that. He goes, I just need you to finish it. I just want you to do something for me that I'm asking you to do and not walk away and be obedient. And so I mulled it over and talked to some pastors about some different online seminaries to be able to sit there and finish things out. And yeah, man, I signed up for Liberty this last spring in January. So it was for the spring semester, and I went a full caseload. And as I'm sitting there going through, I start my classes. I was like, okay, cool, I can handle this. I mean, talking with the professors through email, some other things going on, and yeah, dude. So back in January of 2026, I start seminary back up, and as I'm going through it, kind of read halfway through, like back, I don't know, February-ish, maybe March, February, and I looked down at the bottom and said, hey, you need to do an internship. I was like, what are you talking about to do some internship? You're crazy. I have 9 kids. I coached 8 sports last year. I'm teaching. I'm going to school full time, and by full time, I'm 15. It took 15 semester hours during the spring. I was like, I have to do an internship too. How many hours? 150. I was like, I already did a 150-hour internship when I got my principal certification. What do you mean? And so I called them back. I called Liberty and I said, hey, is this true? And they're like, yeah, it's true. You got to do it. I was like, man. So I reached out to 2 pastors at Northridge and I said, hey, is it okay if I come in and be an intern at the church? They're like, absolutely, Bruce. I got to know, it's funny. It's like we've been to the church less than a year, but because our kids have been there. And so like we've had them over for dinner. Like we've had multiple pastors over at our house for dinner. We hang out, we talk, get to learn about them a little bit. They got to know about us a little bit. And so I've already built a relationship. So they said, yeah, man, we'll take you. And so I was like, cool. You want to know what? Instantly down by the Plymouth location. I thought I was going to be at Plymouth, which is, like he said, further away. And I said, cool, man, I'm going to accept a teaching job down this way, which I did. And then we'll maybe buy a house closer to Plymouth. And then I can't even make this up, dude. Like within a short while, I get a phone call saying, hey, we have 2 options. You can still do the internship in Plymouth, Or you can follow Levi. He's going to be the pastor at the Brighton campus as a campus pastor, and you can follow him. And I was like, I'm laughing, but it doesn't surprise me. I go, yeah, let me call my mentor real quick. And he goes, Bruce, you already know what you're gonna do. You're crazy. Go to the small location and have a lot more fun. And so I did. I sit there and said, hey, Levi, let's go. And so we did, man. My bride and I and all of our kids made the trek over to the Brighton location. I've gotten over my half my hours in since May, but it's this God just opened doors since we've been there too, right? Like he's continued to open doors as I've gone through the internship, just meeting people in relationship. The funny thing is that as we got to Brighton and we've gotten involved and we've built these relationships, our lease, when we first moved to Michigan, we signed a 3-year lease is coming up. And we're like, man, maybe we should just buy a house in Brighton, God. And we went there, and the first houses that we looked at, wife went and was like, no, it's not going to happen. Like it's not going to happen because we didn't want to happen, but because it just didn't align. Like it didn't work out. And one of the houses that was pretty cool had a bunch of like water dam. Like it was just not God's will. And so we're like, God, what does this look like? And God goes, listen, And so he sits there and he's like, hey, you just gotta keep praying, and I'll reveal it. And we're sitting there one night, and one of our kids in middle school just broke down. He goes, Dad, I don't want to move again. You already took us from Texas. We don't want to move. And at that point, it made me confront like my biggest struggle since growing up, right? Like I grew up and I moved a ton as a kid, a ton. And I never had stability in my life. And for me, it's a lot safer to keep moving than to have to put roots down. And I hear my son cry, and it made me look in the mirror. I'm like, either I'm going to be a man right now and plant roots, or I'm not. And guess what, dude? We said, fine, we understand. Made me cry at the time. And I was like, okay. And so lo and behold, we end up putting an offer on a house in the same district that we live in now. And it's been almost seamless. On top of that, God gave me a teaching job back in the district. How about this? For any of you guys who teach, I taught in 3 districts in 1 year. I started in the district, I left the district, I came back to the district all in the same year. Only God can do that, right? And the reality is, I only came back to the district that I'm in now, back in the district for the last 2 weeks of school. And like looking at it, the way in which he orchestrated that is the way in which we were able to make numbers work for the house that we're in. And so I could go on for a whole other tangent about that, but I won't. But he said, hey, guess what? You're going to be in between both locations. And not only are you going to sit there and make this area that you're living in home for your kids, you're going to sit there and plant your happy little butt in between both churches so you can be involved in both churches, not one. I just had a pastor reach out to me who's over me in the internship. He was like, what are your plans when you graduate? I go, dude, God told us to be here right now. And this is where we're at. And whether it's a paid spot on staff one day or not. And so just being obedient and continuing to be obedient. And I think my favorite part of this whole story, and I'll end it at this, is because of how I chose to live my life throughout many of my older kids' childhood. I was an alcoholic. I was angry. Like I was pissed off all the time. I said a lot of hurtful things. My actions didn't they didn't meet my words. And so like my oldest son and I we butted heads. Like he's 18, I kicked him out of the house. And it was bad. Like I was a jerk for a long time. And since we've lived in Michigan, God has redeemed my relationship with him, which is like one of like the biggest moments for me. On top of that, even though my daughter, who's 20, and I have had a pretty good relationship most of the time, he gave us a 3 to 4 month stint where she lived here in Michigan with us too, which was the second part of the redemption process for me. So my oldest 2 kids, who I was the biggest, I mean, you can call me an a-hole, you can call me whatever you need to. I was legitimately, he gave me a chance for redemption and to make it right. And all I can sit there and say is this: the redemption story of Jesus Christ is better than anything else you could ever sit there and do or try to attain. And guess what? If you're listening to this, give it to God. Whatever it is that you're going through, give it to God. Give him a shot and see what comes of it. And I can tell you right now, what I am going through right now and what I'm experiencing now in life is better than anything else I could have attained on my own.
Amen. The one thing that is a repetitive theme from beginning till now, and this is far from the end, so not beginning to end, but beginning till this point in your story, is there's multiple times where you listened to God, He did what He said, and then you didn't do what He said. And how true is that of so many of our lives? Like, that's practical for and relatable to every single one of us, myself included, is that there's seasons where, yeah, I'm on it. We're coming out of a tough time. I'm going to do whatever God says. And then things go well for a while. We take back control. What happens when we take back control is things start to fall apart again. And then we repeat that cycle. And I've talked to a lot of people who are in one of those times of their life. And, there's a lot of times we think, man, I've walked away one too many times. I haven't listened one too many times. And your story is a great reminder that redemption story is waiting for every single one of us. That redemption story is not just in favor to Bruce Payne. That redemption story is for fill in the blank with your name. All it takes is for you to continually come back to what God has intended for your life. What is the path that God has taken or God has chosen for your life? And we're all in that. That's that, as you're talking, those are questions that, I need to ask myself is like, what is God's plan for my life? Because there's times where you start living Tim's plan for your life, or you start living Bruce's plan for your life. When you start taking control and you start living your plan for your life, it ends in one way, with you sitting there thinking, what have I done? How do I get back to what God has intended? So I love that that's just a recurring theme. It's your story from beginning to now is just continual redemption and continual move with God. I'm excited. I love that we get to spend life together here for the time you're at Brighton. It's been amazing for the last few months. As we close, Bruce, what's one thing that you would say to a man listening who's maybe not sure which direction to go? Maybe they're feeling stuck. What's one thing you'd give to them for some encouragement?
Yeah, I mean, so many things I can sit there and say. I think this, man, it's a journey, not a destination, right? So every single day, try to do one thing better. Just do one thing. Pick one thing. For a guy who's totally lost, for a woman who's totally lost, reach out to Tim. I recommend it, man. His stuff is here for you guys to sit here and contact him, contact me. But reach out to somebody, reach out to anybody, and be willing to talk. And I think the reality is the devil wants us to be in isolation. Actually, I know the devil wants us to be in isolation because when we're in isolation, it's easy for him to sit there and crap in between your ears. And that's just the reality. And the reality is the more you talk with other men, the more you realize that we're all on the same journey. And what we're going through is not much different. The things the devil might use to get us off track or off task might be different than the guy next to us, but overall it's the same thing. And so don't be too prideful to the point where you can't go talk to someone. So reach out. If it's one of those things where you've already reached out, just pick something every single day to get better at. Be willing to sit there and get better. Hey, guess what? I'm going to sit there and get up 5 minutes earlier and read my Bible. At lunchtime, I'm going to sit there and take 5 minutes to pray. Every night before bed, I'm going to take the time to pray with my wife. Just do one thing differently every day, and before you know it, that little mustard seed that started in one part of your heart will overtake the rest of it, and you'll end up becoming the man that God or the woman that God designed you to be, which is a beautiful thing. Last thing, if you still have breath in your lungs right now, it is not too late to sit there and make the change in your life. We're never guaranteed a last breath, but right now, if you're listening to this, it's never too late to say, hey, you want to know what? I want to make a change. You can make a change. There's no sin that you've committed. Here's my favorite part too. Last thing, I know I'm not going to go on tangent. I can go on tangent forever. Is that look who God used in the Bible? Murderers. Dude, there's a ton of murderers that he's used. Dudes who killed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dudes that he used for the kingdom of God. And if he can use them and those fools, what makes you think he can't use you and me? So stop making it about you, make it about him, and see what he can do.
Amen. We'll end on that. Bruce, it was awesome to have a conversation with you tonight. Again, thank you for jumping on the podcast and sharing your story. In the show notes, I'll put how you can get in touch with me and follow Warriors Way and what we're doing. I'll also put how you can get in touch with Bruce and the ministries that he's doing and get in contact with him. And like you said, reach out. The devil wants us to be in isolation. He wants you to think that nobody cares about what's going on, and that couldn't be further from the truth. But you have to take the step and reach out. So, Bruce, thanks again. Guys, if you enjoyed the podcast, if it spoke to you, please share it with one other person. That's all we ask, is that you share it. So thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, brother.